Well, here we are back with another thing of the political minute. Won't act like I've been actually going around trying to check out some things or something else here. Let's just end it. With everything, all things considered, um, well, the Mussolini family has been rising again. There's talk of notaries and everything else. Well, I should have heard of something else out there. The gears of rotary will take the notaries and make everything for you because someone else has to pay for them, someone else has to do it. And at the end of the day, the USA government just goes, don't let them live around the presidents who have basically going with a little bit of urban legends. A computer clone, which is really the DNA computer. But Obama was supposed to be the last one. And they have a little surrogate person go out there, a body double, and they basically read their scripts and everything else, and that's why Biden seems so unreachable. And he's basically living somewhere in the heartland out there around a bunch of people and everything else that he likes. Rumored to be a Native American reservation and everything to Little Rock, Arkansas, with the corporate sponsors that have such good security, like Walmart, since all of them have a base in Little Rock, Arkansas. Anyway, he's going around here with this, and basically the Mussolinis have taken over Seattle, Portland, several small little towns in California, and closed down the West Coast. They've taken over Boulder, Colorado, and they've taken over the area in Arizona where the representative was shot for the Democratic Party and some very important judge that was on his way up probably to the Supreme Court and would have been better than Scalia or Ruth Bader Ginsburg after his career had matured and they saw if he was really left or right. And he was supposedly supposed to be one of the most central people ever, and possibly the first independent in a long time that was ever elected. In going with this and everything else, people do this and everything. They're supposedly moving across the north, moving out through Kenosha, since so many people have just fled from there, as well as making their notary law, which is what removed the Godfather and the people like that and had them deported to Sicily, Sardinia, and Corsica and mainland Italy. They can say that this is really something that is unheard of. I've not heard anything out of Alaska yet. I've heard that there's some major problems with native killing and other people like that in order to stabilize the Pacific Islands that are with the USA, namely Hawaii. And that they are really going after them in every way, shape, or form. And what they're doing is trying to separate them off so that there can be no connection to the Allies in any way, and that the USA will become the Mussolini base that they'll just go out from. This is also what the Confederates did. Now, for anyone who doesn't know about Rotary, Rotary is this group that basically will go out there and adopt the little children from the area out of major situations, and then they will in turn learn how this situation is supposed to be in order for the children of them in order to act properly in society and benefit from it mostly. These other families that are left and represented only by one kid, they call it Oliver Twist back in the day when the Japanese were running everything for a secondary tribal underneath Mussolini. They've since moved to Mali and two or three of the other African colonial systems that they say that they have. The Mussolinis go out and have a notary done. Everyone that I know of and everything else that's the older people, they don't even know what a notary means nowadays. A notary means that I can go out there and have the seal of the government put on something that I personally handwrite, and it becomes legal law that the law has to enforce for me, of me, and by me. And they have to figure out how it's supposed to work within society, and all the legislation is supposed to go for that and do everything from the person of the common good. And you do not ever pay for notary because it's considered a bribe. A notary is supposed to be free and paid by the taxes for them, or else there's supposed to be someone else who will pay the fee for them, as the Mussolinis will do. This is not uncommon. This is most people try and look at it as extortion. And extortion just doesn't have a paper trail. Once they get the notary seal and have someone do it on it, and someone that is placed into the governmental agencies, not the police necessarily, but into the governmental, like clerks and other stuff like that, has to then come up with the funds from other people, either overcharging them for traffic tickets to everything else, to making them have to pay an extra 50 on sewage or gas meter. That'll cover in the South about one or two, actually about 2.5 for notary legalization. And this is one of the reasons why they tried to remove the Mussolini family back in the 1980s, which the president came down with a bunch of Secret Service people and, some choice little military unit people out there. Not really more than like 24, like 2 platoons. He really needed to go with the whole thing up above there, about 2, and then bring in everybody else afterwards, because they really do not believe that they have combat training in the most rugged areas of the United States, all in plain clothes. And if they shoot one of their people, they'll just write it up as a hunting accident, or the guy went out there and did it himself. And after about 72 hours exposed to the elements to about a week, you're not going to find any GSR that's not going to say the person wasn't shooting himself, since they all use the same ammunition, the same situation over that. And then whenever they come out afterwards, so they can't ever say there was friendly fire incidents, they use the different rifles and different calibers and other stuff, just like they did in Knoxville in the 1980s. Now, in and of this, while they all believe that this will make them Federalists and they will be separated from the Catholic cult and anything over with Rome and be totally back to dictator status. See, they're a bunch of Romans and a family that has gone to cult, and you can never fall out of that. You can only fall further down the system of cult until you're exterminated and gotten rid of. That doesn't make them anything like the Jews. That's their own process. The war with the Jews and any war in Europe does involve genocide. It does involve the complete extermination of them, unless they can prove that they are a Christian cannibalistic nation, which is against the United States founding Continental Congress and the founding documents. It's one of the reasons why we can't really be in a war that long allied with Europe. It doesn't make sense, and it drives us crazy. And then we have Texas and everybody else wanting to balkanize down to California and everywhere else. The thing about this notary is this is exactly how the heads of the Confederacy were formulated. I have a couple of movies and other stuff that I'm going to try and peddle to Hollywood with everything and put the scripts together. Honestly, I really do try that. I haven't gotten anywhere. I had one call from a publisher that I will not mention, and they told me my name would never be on it. And I was also supposed to pay the editor fees, and then I'd never get any royalties from it and anything else, because I have to sign over everything 100% to them and not have a copyright. But since I got a copyright in the United States Library of Congress, they won't talk to me. And Obama's family that lives on Magnolia on the upper end said they took care of that, and how'd I like knowing that my stuff was actually going to be recognized? And it's like, well, I'll be honest, you're not as good as the Burkheimers, but I'll say in every way you are better than them. They really can't thumb their nose like that. Anyway, moving along, this rotary is where the heads of the Confederacy came from. They all wanted to try and be, because they were exiled Catholic kingdoms, basically, at that time. I mean, there's a lot of other places where you can say it's English Protestantry now, with how commonwealths have separated out, and they still kind of follow that, and they're not really there. So Protestantry actually goes further than anything with Catholicism right now. And as it is, the Confederacy is basically remaking itself in this, but it's also making itself in the Eastern Orthodox, which is where Mussolini's main family is. And it's also where the Liechtenstein that we all hear so much about now and then, it's just a conglomerate of all the principalities that will go out there and will take over the Eastern Orthodox kingdoms. Every single one of those areas, or countries as it is, will return itself in a way. And it will bring Germany, like it already has with the Wrens, and it will bring Switzerland because of its connection to the Pope. Everything else will move off to the east, Austria will be left on its own with nothing else there. And this is just part of Mussolini's plan. And him as full leadership of a confederacy being made through the rotary system here on notary will bring forth a more robust, instead of basically a six-table head controlling all the Confederacy last time around, will make it out to about 18 to 22. And that has nothing to do with the number of states that they will bring underneath them for a civil war. Now, this is one of the situations out there. A civil war is defined in the United States not as in brother against brother, like a lot of people think. It's defined as a group of foreign nationals coming here to steal our civil liberties, territory, and any of our rights that they do not have overseas. And just because they are here does not mean they are domestic troops or anything else, but will try to make themselves seem as domestic as possible and just go, it's too hard to think up a system this good or replace it. So we'll just take it for our own. And you'll be subjugated underneath us and become another colony. And then the founding heads there will be the lords over it, underneath whatever they say is overseas. Generally refer to that as a king or queen or an emperor. Now, if left alone long enough, this will reform the Confederacy round table, so to speak of. And then, lo and behold, someone like Jefferson Davis will just push his chair back, step up on the table, and be like, y'all need to listen to me. I know what I'm talking about, and you all are going to do everything for me. And they don't throw shit at him or try and kill him. And that person then becomes the presidency, and he's underneath whoever it is out there for it, and that's basically how the Confederate government got formulated. Even the people that were elected and put around underneath Jefferson were not even the people there with that. There's rumors that he just came in and ran his mouth about stuff and everything else. Didn't even really know what it was and thought there was just an important party that he was supposed to be at. And still just really didn't know about it. And then later just didn't bother to write down any of it because that's why he seemed like he was such a defeated person and couldn't really do anything. And just kind of laid there and was like, wasn't everybody just going to be happy with me? And Robert E. Lee, basically, just because he's a general that would work, and that's all they really cared about, really took care of everything. And honestly, I doubt there'll be that type of incompetence this next time around, to where the general spends 50% of his time taking care of whatever it is and refortifying it. If he hadn't done any of those things, I mean, you generally lose back then just digging trenches 10 men a day due to exhaustion, cutting a foot off with a shovel, and staph infections. So even with that being said, over how they would be looking at it and saying, well, didn't they use slaves all the time? Yeah, that was probably higher then also, because they were down in the trenches, and we have about 6 or 7 people always die a year in Knoxville area from putting in power lines with the big, heavy, good equipment that's supposedly there to do everything, putting them underground power lines so we don't ever have like down power lines from tornadoes now and ice storms. So with the really good stuff, it's like, okay, you had all these people do that. There were soldiers and stuff, and then you had probably, I don't know, 3 times that amount every day in slaves that died. And you're not going anywhere as fast as with actual modern machinery. I'm just saying, I'm not on the side of Confederacy. People have called me Confederate because I live in the South. And I'm going, they all sold their land and went north and nearly starved the entire country because nobody up north knew how to grow food. And it's like after the Civil War was probably where nobody ever documented how many people really truly died of hunger. And then the last bits of it were around at like 1930, extenuated from World War I and World War II. And they only legalized alcohol to get more calories into people. Now, this is going to be some really hard stuff to swallow, but this is the way the Civil War will probably play out. We're looking at Seattle, Portland, and probably two or three little towns in California that are really strategic, but no one really cares about them because they're highway stops. You just got to shut down the bridges. After that, um, you're going to have the White Sands area, NORAD area, Oak Ridge area, New York City, Kenosha, and basically anywhere into Canada North. And then you're going to have probably some place in the South that will show up here in the next little while, probably somewhere it seems like it's Nowhereville or something else like that. That's going to be Florida to Georgia to Alabama, Mississippi, and yes, Arkansas. I see Arkansas honestly playing out like Rodney King. If there's a lot of stuff happening in California that's really bad, it's like, well, Ferguson was close enough to Little Rock, and however many years it went after California, from Rodney King to now, that'll be about the timeline there. And it'll go across there to Pennsylvania and outer New York. Now, I know that that's probably not a really good situation to say about. There's probably a lot of stuff I should say internationally that's really coming up, but this really will lead to everything that's international. And while Rotary will probably not be seen for anything, as it's bulletproof, and they even have a monument to it down here, and the Notary Society that comes up around it that gets everything notarized for their own personal law and everything, will just be exasperated uh, and extenuated, and it's just probably going to lead to lost resources, especially with our budget problem and everything else right now. And if there was something they'd be doing, they just get us involved into a foreign war in the Pacific or else in the South American to African areas nowadays. This is Colin Dawson with the Political Minute. Over and out.